welcome back to part 26 of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, where today we've reached the Amala Temple, where Isamu is hanging around collecting power through the Amala network. Entering the actual temple, you'll find that it's 3 pyramids and not just one big singular structure, so you'll be working through this one piece at a time. The order you so choose to do the 3 pyramids is up to you.
I found while checking out the network, and there's a crap load of Magatsuhi stored inside. The only caveat is, there are 3 powerful demons in the way. So, if you want to save your pal, you're gonna have to beat each one. If you can do that, I'll let you inside the central temple. Well, better get a move on.
You know, for a lifelong friend, Isamu truly is showing his real colors now. He's a very blunt and uncaring and kind of arsey person. Like, he doesn't care for us at all. He just wants us to go. But because we're here anyway, it's like, fine, I guess I'll put a test on for you. Clear the 3 temples and you'll get access to the main one. As a motorbike passes by and makes a racket. But my point stands, you can do the 3 temples in any order you so choose. I just go from left to right because why not? And all of them have their own, they're kind of like 3 mini dungeons. Like, none of them are the length of some of the places we've done before. Like, it's certainly no obelisk. But they're all just have their own dungeons with their own unique boss fight at the end. So you need to clear all 3 of them out, and then when you beat their boss, you'll be finished with that temple. Once all 3 of them are done, you will be able to advance to the final piece. And as I go through here, there's a lot more unique demons, so I try and see if I can recruit a few, and have about as much luck as you assume. Life is all in binaries. Actually, abandon others to become our true selves. Yes, we should. Very well then. Because he's part of the beast lineage, that would have worked. Some other demon types would have been rather upset about us saying, yeah, let's just throw everything out the window and say fuck it. But I pick up Tempest, which is a medium physical damage across the board, which is just better than Heatwave. We don't keep Tempest for that long, because I have every intention of replacing it a little later on. But for the sake of right now, Tempest is nice to have. As just a average damage group-wide. There's still going to be a lot of instances where you'll see me just directly punch someone square in the face instead of using it. But it's still nice. But over here, you're going to start getting more of a reason, pardon the pun, understanding of the reason that Isamu is following. As I mentioned in the last part, he's entirely around the idea of isolationism, where everyone has their own personal paradise, but the biggest problem of that is that no one advances for themselves, no one evolves for themselves. Everyone just gets their own version of heaven, where whatever they want they get on their own in their magic bubble. Which is because there's no development of humanity. That's the biggest flaw of it, is that everyone is... the entire reason is based around running away from hardships, which is the biggest problem Isamu faces, and he doesn't get to directly challenge. He instead says, hey, I can make a paradise where I don't have to, so sticks to that instead. And all 3 of the main reasons I will go into now, because the other 2 we've already seen glimmers of, and we'll see more of as we go on, but I can explain. Chiaki, to give comparison, views a very dog-eat-dog world, and feels it should continue to be that way. She wants to make a world where only the strong survive and the weak barely deserve to live. And that comes with the obvious issue of, well, if the strong must fight to the death to be the strongest constantly, everyone will die eventually. It's a very temporary peace by power kind of thing. It will fall apart soon later. But it is another reason that you can choose to agree with and side with, which is why she's got such a pursuit for power. And with the mantra as a whole being very strong enforcers of only the strong should fight and the weak should be barely alive, hence when we first got there, that was introduced the moment we met the mantra, when we was imprisoned by them and had to fight for our freedom to prove our strength by squaring down with 4. Also, that was a very unfortunate. I tried to go Marmadoon just for the odds of it, and all 3 of them were completely, like, safe against it. I was like, well, okay, can't do that then. I probably should have tried Mahame on just for shits and giggles, but I decided against it because I didn't want another turn wasted. And finally, the one that, at least personally, I find the hardest to find any reason to agree with. No, it's hard to say another word other than reason when talking about the reasons in this game. It's just how it is. But yeah, the last one is Hikawa's, the reason of stillness. As I tank a Madoon there, which was very unfortunate. The problem with having an angelic-based member of your party in a dungeon where most enemies have got dark-based skills, that's just, ugh. That was a very unfortunate that I happened to bring Dominion for this, but it is what it is. But the reason of stillness is the idea that everyone is of one mind. I talked about it last time, but I ended up not talking about it as much as I'd rather want to. But it is what it says on the tin. It's the idea that everyone shares the same brain, everyone shares the same soul, same heart. Everyone is basically identical clones of one another that are connected to like one mega brain network, basically. With the idea being that you can achieve anything and there are no outliers and there are no problem causers. It is just a universal, invincible society of everyone being of one piece. Everything that is learned by one is learned by the many. Like a real... It's kind of ironic that we're fighting Legion when talking about it, but it's a very Legion-like mindset of like the we are many, we are one kind of thing. And the obvious problem with that is the lack of individuality, the lack of freedom, and the lack of discovery. If everyone knows everything and it is a shared network, there is nothing to gain from the world you work through. And so at least for me personally, that is the one that I'm always like, with the most. I ingest Satan here, but this is a bit preemptive to when, because I'm nowhere, I say nowhere near, I'm like 5 or 6 levels short of where I want to be to get Deadly Fury. So I think Deadly Fury is 66 you need to be for it. Which is why I wasn't pushing for it straight away. Like, I pushed for it eventually when I'm closer to the level, but I wasn't that fussed. But the first of the 3 temple, the Western Temple, is known as the Black Temple because it's mostly darkness. And so you're in the pitch black. And you're going to see me as I work through here, take very particular routes as I go through. Because, and I've mentioned before that there are a couple points in this game that when I got to them, for one reason or another, I eventually just go, fuck it, and have a guide. I didn't follow a guide religiously, but I had a guide on standby for the entirety of my temple runs, just to make sure I get it done at a reasonable length. Just because on my original playthrough and my practice run, it took forever. And so eventually I just decided, you know what, I want to keep this Let's Play moving. I don't want to be in this dungeon for like 4 videos. So I'm just going to have a guide on standby to just make sure I'm running in the right general direction and go from there. But the other thing that ended up encouraging me to go for it is that I get an extremely unlucky situation. I've said before that throughout the entire journey of my recording for this game, I only tanked 2 game overs, and neither of them were from favourable situations. One of them, as we saw before, was just a very unlucky Mudoon on our way back out of the dungeon. The other one's going to be in this video. The other game over, the second of the only 2 I get in this entire run through, happens to unfortunately come from this. And you'll see what happens. It's just one of those things. It's going to be best described as a Nocturne moment for me. I just get really unlucky. I think it's actually this encounter. Yeah, it's focus, its next attack's going to do double damage. Attacks me, does 252, goes for me again, puts me in endurance state, hits me again, I'm dead. So thankfully we only saved like 30 seconds prior, so it wasn't that bad, but that was still like a, alright, kind of thing. That was a really unfortunate, and as if to punch me, I get luck boost after it, after getting extremely unlucky with that. But it was just one of those things. It says everyone just nicknames it a Shin Megami Tensei moment or a Nocturne moment, to be specific to this game, where it's just you go into a fight and sometimes the game just decides you die today. Like, I wasn't gonna know in advance that I should have Warcried that Osei to make sure I survive or use a Fog Breath on that basic encounter. When you come here, none of these doors will open. But you have to go up the next floor, trigger a mechanism, and then come back. All of these have either a gimmick or a trap floor in them that will drop you somewhere else. On the floor beneath, there's an identical set of doors. If you go into one of them, you'll notice the floor's cracked. Keep in mind where that one is. I know where it is off by heart anyway. So even without the guide, I know which door it is, but it's still worth talking about it is when you get here. Like, if you go through the other doors, you might find the odd thing, but more often than not, it's not worth the trouble. You might as well just go straight to the goal, which I will showcase. But so with Osei, that one random encounter, the fact that he focused, so the next hit was going to do double damage, and he got a crit, so it put me into very dangerous, and the next attack also happened to be targeted at me, which put me into the endurance bracket, because it put me at 1. That attack would have killed me on its own if it out of endurance. And then followed it up with Blight to try to guarantee it, and it just happened to hit me. It was just a sequence of unfortunates. Like, if at any point he targeted someone else or not gone for Blight, I would have survived it and it would have been fine. But it was the fact that he only targeted me for the whole of it. But it meant from this point onwards, when I encountered an Osei, I almost started to fight every time with a nerf of some kind. It's like, if I can't push with a kill in one, I am nerfing this son of a bitch. Because it was not worth the hassle. For each of the 3 temples, as I said, they're mini dungeons, because we're already kind of done. In front of us is a save terminal, and opposite is the door to the boss. Which is what I mean, they're all very tiny, because there's 3 of them. But the bosses inside can vary depending on what your setup is. And for me, it results in one of them being a joke, one of them being very time-consuming, and one just kind of existing. And not really being a threat, but lasting a decent amount of time anyway. But I try and get this Quetzalcoatl as well. Because this guy's very good for fusion material. And he just wants my health. His taste, could it be the legendary? Loser. You must part ways. What the fuck? Like, it's like he can sense, like, he takes our blood and he senses that we've got demonic presence within us and senses what we've done before. Because that is a thing. What you do and what endings you start siding to, demons will pick up on, and it will make it easier or harder to recruit certain demons. Like, if you side with a certain reason, all the demons that agree with that reason, you'll have an easier time recruiting. Sort of thing. Like, it kind of works like that. So the angels you'll find a lot easier time to agree with if you agree with the power should survive idea of Chiaki. But going into here, I think I changed my Magatama. Because this thing's a very, like, physical attacker. So I wanted to find one that was resistant to physical. But I was hesitant to use either of them. Well, I eventually went with Geese, but I was hesitant to use it because it makes you weak to light and death. And so I just like, ugh. But this is the boss of this bit. I've come from the depths of hell seeking Magatsuhi, and I must say you are quite a rarity. But who or what are you of little consequence to me? I will sink my teeth into that feeble body of yours. The Assail or Baden type of demons all look like this in Nocturne. Almost all of them got design changes after Nocturne. It was just, like, it was where like Nocturne was kind of the principle that introduced everything. Almost as soon as this game came and went, almost all of this lineup of demons were changed. But you still see glimmers of it. And Assail is one of the ones that you still see glimmers of to this day. But usually you don't see the rest of the body underneath. Essentially, Assail and the entire race of beings are spiritual-esque beings. So they actually exist underneath the plane of reality. Which is why every time it sits up to attack, you see more of it. This isn't the entirety of the being. There's an entire humanoid being that's ridiculously tall underneath it that you never get to see. It's only on certain attacks and certain animations you see more of its body, usually going as far as its shoulders before it stops. You never see its hands or anything below. But it has Dragon Eye, but it's an extremely physical-based one, so if you can do something to resist physical, more power to you. But it will also waste whole turns mana draining to try and build up a more dangerous skill, which it will then use the moment you give it the opportunity to. A legitimate strategy to make this fight easier for yourself is to reduce all of your party's MP to a straight 0 or as close to 0 as possible. Like, just expend it as much as possible in fights beforehand, then go into it with barely anything. But I don't bother with this, mostly because firstly, you're not going to likely know to do that beforehand. And secondly, it would be very frustrating for me to do so, because most of my party have got mana refill now. So my MP just keeps on ticking away when I walk regardless. Here's the biggest skill you need to be wary of. no matter what, it will always put your entire party's health to 1. It costs MP to use it, so if you can keep his MP low, he will never use it. I'm not going to say it because I am terrified of pronouncing it wrong. But that skill is something you need to be wary of, and it's why I'm using Tetracon more often than not. Because it's just a safety measure. It won't trigger your endurance. If you have Endure on Demi-Theme, he uses it and then attacks you specifically, it won't count. So your next attack will keep your HP at 1. It will do 0 damage, but then you'll lose it. So be wary of that at least. You do have a little bit. It's not completely murderous against you. It's just if he drains your NP, you're gonna have that skill come your way. But outside of it, this fight, it just takes a while. Just be physically resistant and wait it out, and you'll be fine. Like, I try and use skills like Focus to speed it up. The only thing that's cheeky is that the boss will use that skill first after a Dragon Eye, or first on its turn. So there's a lot of times where it will just catch a team member unawares where you weren't expecting it. But here he is going for another round of it. But because, once again, everyone in my party has MP, that means that Daisojo can drain mana back, so I can kind of even out the odds a little bit. But it feels like it starts with a healthy amount of mana anyway. It just uses mana drain to give itself more comfort. So if you're trying to lower its MP, you kind of need to use meditation several times. Because we just did a little bit more than what it did, like than what it got from us. We did a little bit more in one go than what it did to us in its entire turn. But it's still gonna have access to that skill in the next turn, I believe. It has enough MP to do so. Which is why I was saying you need to kind of be like constantly pushing for it to push its MP to such a low position it can't use anything outright, because it certainly doesn't start on low. And just to be safe, I Warcry it, even though it's not going to matter because it's going to use that skill again. Like I said, it will never kill. But you see, right there, that is what I mean. I didn't use Tetracon that one turn. It went for me, Endurance kicked in, it did 0 damage. But now that's my only safety gone. So if that exact same scenario happens again, I'm guaranteed to die. So, which is why I'm going to start using MP restoratives on the minion more often than not. But I get an amazing crit off the Tempest there, with the Focus as well. Getting a crit with Focus is always so satisfying in this game. If you get a crit with the Focus, you just get 1,000 damage for free sometimes. And later on, when we get some of the ultimate skills, like Deadly Fury, and a certain other one, that we'll get right near the end of the game, you can start ripping like 4,000 plus damage in a single hit if you play your cards right. In fact, there's a boss fight later on where that straight up happens. Where I end up hitting the boss like 4,000 plus damage in a single strike. But the pattern begins anew. He's going to start doing his mana drains yet again. So this fight ends up taking a little while longer just because the fight... Assail ends up dragging out most of it with this. But I think Assail, in terms of like difficulty, is probably the hardest one of the 3 you're going to fight in here. At least for me. The other 2 have never been as much of a threat. Like, the second one can be very time-consuming, because that gimmick we did with the Spectre, we're essentially doing again, where it's going to be a main boss, but 4 minions with it, and if you kill the 4 minions without killing the boss, he will resurrect the minions. But if you kill the boss without killing the minions will resurrect the boss. So on the turn that you go for the kill, you have to wipe the floor with both. You can make it a bit more manageable for you, and I'll probably mention it again when we get to it, but if you kill 3 of the 4 minions and then push for the kill on both at the same time, it'll be fine. Like, if you only kill 3 of the 4, it's not the end of the world. The other 3 won't get revived. It's only if all 4 of them die, the boss will then revive them all together. But at this point, we're kind of running low on MP across the board, which is why I'm going to see me start pushing for the kill a little bit more, because I want to get this guy done before it becomes too much more of a threat. And I know he's getting close. He has a lot of health because they know they're going to play it physical, so you're going to play it physical. And so they always bump up the health of bosses that they know you're going to be going physical for, just because of the damage output. But it doesn't change the fact it's kind of annoying. For some reason, the idiot pushes to mana drain on me, despite the fact I have none. So that really doesn't go well for him. Especially because Daisojo is just going to MP drain it back and get even more back out of it. And because its defense has been lowered, we got 166 out of it. And I was like, that's good. I still safety Tetracon because I'm expecting another use of that skill to come by. But it's still not dead. And lo and behold, despite the fact it shouldn't really have that much MP, it has enough to use it again. So have that. So, once again, do the pattern. So once you get into a pattern of it, it's fine. The only thing that's keeping an eye on is with Dominion's case, it's making sure he has enough MP to keep up the Tetracon. Because he's the only demon we have right now that has it. As I say that, I think Parvati's on the cusp of learning it. Oh, its defense limits, its defense lowering has been reached. But since we have 0 MP, I can't focus, so I just push for the attack again. And it is nearly dead. We are getting there. It doesn't have too much left. And I'm aware of that, which is why I keep on pushing. Like, I know it has barely anything left at this point. Oh, see, it's dying, and it's dead. Not yet. And because it's a boss still, you still get a healthy amount of experience. And that's 1. The atmosphere around you changed. The first of the 3 temples we're doing today is done. We're doing all 3 in this part, which is why it's a long part.
Can't believe you're really going through with this. Why risk your life for a guy like him? What has he done for you? Oh, what's the use? If that's what you want, keep it up.
Isamu playing the fine. Do whatever. What do I care? Approach to things, despite the fact he clearly cares. When you finish, it will offer you a light to immediately exit the dungeon. But there's loot if you decide not to run out. The other 2 take it because there's no real point. And to be fair, there's not too much of a point here either. It's just there's a treasure that I didn't pick up that you have to circle around for anyway. Because when you go for it, you have to pass a one-way door, which means you'd have to go all the way back around to this dungeon. So I just gathered, you know what, I'll just get it on my way out. I'll just go the long way out. So see, the door's gone behind us. But it's this chest here. And we get a Soma out of it, which is amazing. Full HP and MP restore on 1 member. So now it's just a matter of getting back out of here, which I can show the long road out. If you take the wrong path and fall through the wrong bits of this floor, you'll land in this section anyway, so it'll work out for me anyway of showing what to expect. The reason why I war cried this fight is because I immediately saw Loki. Loki's in this fight, and I was like, okay. Loki is a tyrant. Tyrants are one of the demon races that under no circumstance can you recruit by conversation. In fact, if you try to, Loki will straight up say, you do realize I'm a tyrant, right? Go away. Like, he'll straight up explain it to you if you're not familiar. But the highest ranking demon of a alignment will always refuse negotiation no matter what. Tyrant is the highest class of chaos. So no matter what, they will not talk to you. They will not side with you. You cannot negotiate with them. It's the same with Megami with Law. And I can't remember neutral off the top of my head, but that one counts as well, I believe. Or at least it does in 4. I might be mistaken in 3, because 3 doesn't go as heavy into neutral demons as Strange Journey in 4 does. So I might be mistaken on that. But you see, if you go through here, it will just take you out on this room. And then from there, it's straight south. Leave the door, go straight south, you're out of the temple. So if you do go the wrong way and are only kind of sort of following along, that's your way back out the temple. The other 2, however, I do take the light path out after I'm done, because it's usually quite tedious to get out, and there's no reward for me to stay. But you can safely leave in between each one, so I do that because it's around. So at this point, I'm like, no, Dominion is very problematic. Sure? So I go for this Chimera. And the Chimera I end up keeping for a while because this Chimera just ends up being a very strong friend for me. Like, he ends up being a very wise choice to fuse. And a reason why I'm showing Barong here is that Barong is actually one of the demons I took with me to endgame on my blind playthrough. And so I always kind of have memories. Like, my final demons on my blind playthrough, if you're curious, was Daisojo, Barong, and Lakeshmi. Which I think that's how you pronounce it. We get a Lakeshmi later on. But they were what my final demons ended up being. And I get Iron Claw on my way back, which is an amazing skill. It's such an amazing physical skill to have. So I was so happy to get it, and I keep it around. When I end up fusing demons off of the Chimera, I make sure they pick up Iron Claw, because it's just a really strong physical skill to have. Especially going into late game, because it's heavy. It's single target, but it's got a good hit rate and a decent crit rate. So as long as you like add one hit and evasion buff to yourself, or like one nerf to the opponent, you'll probably be fine. But this is the second temple. The second temple has a bunch of trick teleporters. Depending on what room you enter, depends on where you get warped. This is the one I followed a guide for. Like I said, I had like a guide on standby. This is the one I straight up just brought up the guide when it got to it, to make sure I went the exact right path. And I was not fussed about much else. And this place just takes forever if you're trying to feel it out yourself. This door over here has the only real door that you can open that doesn't warp you. So take it and get your free item. And then take your save, because you're going to be here a while. So make sure you make a mental note of where the save is in this top right corner. So I save my game. And then we go round. You go all the way around like a U shape to go around to the opposite corner, the northwest corner. So go back down in this white temple past the door. The main door here, don't touch yet. We'll get to that. And in here you can find a lot of elementals, which at this point in the game, I'm going to be honest, the elementals are kind of worthless. I don't find the elementals to be useful as party members. And I know that's kind of a thing. Like if you have elementals in your party, you're either very brave or very stupid. Only in very early game can you really justify it to any extent, because they've got elemental skills on them. But they are extremely physically weak. And I mean extremely. Like, basic attacks will ruin them, and they really have little health. But here's a good example. There's items here. You walk in, and you hit the one of the trick teleporters, and we're put back where that first item was. So you can't access it through that way. To access those items, you have to trigger another door that would warp you to that room. So all the teleporters are tied to the doors, not what's on the other side of them. So as long as you're opening the right doors, you'll be taken to the right place. As I go through, I take pretty much the most blunt route and not the loot route. As much as it's tempting, I just go for what gets me through here. Most of the loot here isn't too worth it, so I didn't feel too bad in doing that. But it is just, if you're gonna try to go for the items, you're gonna be here for a very long time. And even on my practice run, when I was making notes and whatnot, I was in this specific temple for a little while. A little longer than I wanted to be. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna bring a guide up for it. Like, be honest with you guys that I used a guide to help me get through here. Just because it sped up the process, and then just call it a day afterwards. Which is why I'm pausing, because I'm straight up just looking at the book. It wasn't a video guide. I'm very old school like that. I grew up in the tail end of the mindset of bringing up things like game facts and reading through that. So I just read a guide. I didn't follow a video as I was going through it. But when you get up to this floor, you enter the second part of it, which when you proceed onwards, all you're trying to do is get back to the main room, but beyond that bit you just got warped to. So following the compass points, you want to go west, north, warp, north again, west again. There's a point where you turn back on yourself and you get a warp. That mystic chest we'll get later, so don't worry about it. East. At least I think we do. West. I'm sure we get that mystic chest. I remember picking it up. Yeah, there it is. And we get a chakra pop, which is pretty nice. But we want to go through that warp again, so go through it, then U-turn back through it, so it puts us through that warp we just did, because we want to go a slightly different route this time. Going east, then warp. Then I think it's this one that, like, if you just follow the path, because it's only one route. I think this one gets us out? Yeah, this one gets us out. And it's as simple as that. So we have missed some items, but I did not care. And when you come through, you will immediately get your boss fight. So make sure you're all topped up on MP if you need be. And then when you're ready, press on. Oh, and maybe change your Magatama. I forget to do that, but this is the one that I was talking about, Albion. This is the guy where he'll summon 4 minions, and all the minions and him have to die the same turn. if there is at least one minion alive when the boss dies, it will resurrect the boss. If all 4 minions die and the boss is still alive, he will bring them back through this. But if only 1 minion is alive, he will never resurrect the other 3, at least as far as I'm aware. He never did it in any of the practice runs I did. Line up the fleet, time for some heat! So that's the general premise. But you kind of need to go physical with this one again. Or at least you can go magic, but you just need to be wary. Each of those minions, their color is different because they're weak to a different element. So if you just use, say, Miragi-Dine, one of them will be weak to it, but one of them will block it, and the block will override anyway. So your best bet, at least for me personally, is that I just go all in on physical. I was like, you know what, if I just get physical, get a good Tempest in, I can kill them all in one go, because none of them have high health. Because of the whole thing that the boss can be resurrected, it has very little health. Like, it has enough to barely justify as a boss, but it has enough less that if it does get resurrected, it's not too much of a big deal. Like, the idea is just setting yourself up strong enough that you can kind of wipe the floor of them in 1 or 2 turns. Like I said, realistically, your best bet... Well, this works out as well. Realistically, your best bet is to get 3 of the 4 minions killed, and then buff the hell out yourself and lower their defense, and then just push to get the last 2 done in one go. If you're worried that you're going to fail and have one be resurrected, push for the minion over the boss first, because it's better to have the 4 minions resurrected than the boss. But you can see here, I'm super pushing for it. But this boss is going to keep on hurting himself because he has a physical attack. But because he's going all in on physical, I can make it so the other 4 minions never get to go by just making sure that that is maintained. And because I made sure that the Chimera inherited the Tetra card from the Dominion, I can make even more use out of that, even if it's quite hefty on the cost, and Chimera being a more physical-based demon doesn't have that much MP. So I need to keep on check with that a lot more than normal. Parvati learned Tetrakan as well, so I have a fallback as well. But I have Parvati as more on backup healing, whilst Isojo lowers the enemy stats. Because there's the bonk back, and then loses all its turn gets a reflect. So I can do the lower defense again. And I think I'm approaching the limit. I have an unfortunate habit of losing count of where I am on the numbers. Where I'm trying to pay attention to all the stats, I very often lose in my head where I am. So don't be surprised if there's a couple points where I've nerfed them 4 times and then I use the skill again and waste it because it's hit their defense lowering limit. Case in point, it just happens. I just lose track from time to time. Especially in the late game bosses where I'm so focused on the threat of the boss when we're so close to the end that I'm not really paying attention. I'm just laying the buffs and laying the nerfs, and then I forget. And then eventually I hit the limit and I go, oh, okay. And I just go, okay, that's that. Unfortunately, I didn't get quite the result I hoped for out of that. Like, I got a pretty good result as a whole, but I was hoping to kind of be one and done and the fight be over. So I'm like, well, shit. Like I said, it's not the end of the world because only one of the minions have died, so they won't be resurrected. But that was not what I wanted. I didn't want that to crit and kill. So now I'm like, fuck, now I need to try and kill them, but we only had 1 turn left, so the minions bring back the boss. And the boss being counted as will count as a new entity, so all those defense nerfs no longer exist on it, so you have to nerf its defense again. Which is, like I said, very unfortunate. It's just what happens from time to time. So I clean up that one, and in the same vein, I was going to try and see if I can get that one's health, the green one's health, low as possible without killing it, and I think I end up killing it as well. Either that, or I just decided to go for the reset. One or the other. It's been a while since I recorded this. I might have just gone for the reset and said, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to kill it and then lower all of their defense. Because, yeah, I should have stopped there, but I think I kill it. Oh, no, I push for you. Oh, that was... Iron Claw's accuracy is good, but it's not brilliant. I want to say it's like 60%. So if you can get some hit and evasion boosts on your party, please go for it, because it will make the difference. But once again, we're back in the pattern. It's lower defense. I could boost hit and evasion. I decided not to because I'm like, no, I'll just wait for a physical attack with Chimera. Make it so I can Iron Claw something once I feel confident. Oh god, no, I pushed for the I missed. That didn't help. Out of your seats. That didn't help. If I hit that, maybe I could have been in the running to kill it then and there. I got a little bit too more gung-ho. I should have lowered the defense. But now the entire fight's basically reset. So now we're back at square one. Because we have all our attack boosts, to be fair, but we need to lower the defense again. I'm like, oh god damn it. So I'll war cry it just for good measure, just to be on the safe side. And then start pushing for that. Oh, and I put a hit and evasion boost because I was a little annoyed that I'd lost my chance to get a free quick kill there. Yeah, come on, let's lower that hit and evasion past me. Don't keep on going for the kill. Get that guillotine to go back at it. And start lowering the defense. Stop pushing for that. Get a Tetracon in place. At least the one after this I find far quicker and easier. Like I don't find the third one that bad at all. And we can get back into the pattern of lowering that defense. Hades Blast is heavy based and it is group wide, so be wary of that as well. That heavy damage physically could be unfortunate for you to get caught by. With the Tetracons as well, it could also actually work against you if they all reflect on him and he happens to kill. Because you don't want an accidental kill when it's just still lowering. You want it to be a relatively in-synchronize. I put a heal up because I keep on burning my own health on those Tempests. So then I think I try and finish off one or two more. Just because I want to kill off the boss. But I want to do what I said before about lower the numbers so it's as close as possible. I was terrified that was going to kill it and it would have got a free revive. Because look, now it's like leaning over itself. It's nearly gone. So at this point I'm like, I could probably get away with this. If I'm careful, I could get away with this. But I think I play it safe. And just, yeah, I play it safe. I don't push it for that turn. So the last thing I want is for one of them to miss again and have to do the rest of this fight again. But now on this turn, I feel comfortable that I can push for the kill. And especially that crit helped. Like, Demifin didn't even have to go. That crit very much helped. And Daisoja got yet another level on him. Daisoja wants to talk. Will you listen? Sure, dude. Please be with you. Wagtail Plume. Which aren't great. Wagtail Plumes are kind of rough. But you get a Magatama out of that one specifically. You get a Dharma. Which I don't think I touch. I don't think a Dharma's that great if I recall.
Two demons down. You really are strong. Glad we're on the same team. If we weren't, I'd probably be dead by now. Okay, only one more to go. Hope you haven't run out of steam.
But we'll see. Future me might equip it. I can't remember. The curse of recording all this so much in advance is like we get to discover some of this together. But there's one more temple left to do, and we got about 20 minutes to do it. Yeah, Adama. Oh, I think I equip it for a little bit, but yeah, Adama repels electric but makes you weak to force. And it adds a lot to your vitality, but that's about it. So I end up not really equipping with it that much. Outside of instances where it has its necessity, like if there's a boss that's only using electric, it might be worth it. Like to jump the gun, it's heavily implied when we first met 4 that we will fight him again. If we go and fight 4 again, it might be worth having that Magatama around for that because he's going to be spamming electric skills anyway. But the Red Temple, the final one, is the one that actually has one of my favorite gimmicks in the game. The idea of it is that there's 2 realms going on at once. You have the surface realm and then like a corrupted realm. At the moment you touch a shadow, you enter the corrupted realm, and the only way to leave it is to find a pillar of light. The boss is not in the corrupted realm, it's in the real realm. So you have to find a way to make it to the back room in the real world before you can get through. Like it might sound a bit convoluted, but it'll make sense as you go. Basically, there's 2 worlds. The boss is in World 1, so you have to figure out how to get to the end in World 1 and not in World 2. But to get through it, you have to alternate between the Chaos Realm and the normal realm to do so. It's actually not that bad. The best thing I could recommend is run around. Just run around the block and see where all the shadows are, and then look at where all the one-way doors are, because there are a number of one-way doors that will limit you to certain paths. And then you'll realize that there's 2 light pillars after a while. So he's like, oh, okay, there's only 2 light pillars. The way forward has to be based around at least one of them. So you take the first one, experiment out, and if you can't find an answer, you try the other one, experiment of different ways out. Eventually you find your way through. But now I put back on Satan because I want that, not only that null to dark, but it's another opportunity to start working towards those Satan skills. These back doors, a couple of them have shadows behind it, which I don't want to trigger right now, so I count to the 4th and go to there. Also, if you just feel your way out, like you see, there's a shadow right next to us, but if you feel your way out, you can get round to this. This also won't be available to you if you're in the other realm. But now it's time for the real part of the puzzle. That's odd, I thought I'd passed through here already. I dodged all the shadows too, how come I can't make it upstairs? And there is an interesting thing. Because I followed a guide, but I ended up steering away from a guide for this. It was only in the White Temple I really kind of used it. I just kept it near me just in case. The guide words this dungeon extremely poorly. To such an extent that I'm willing to bet if you follow it word for word, you'll actually end up in the wrong spot. Because it will tell you to take west turns when there aren't any. It will tell you to take... It will say either east or west, and east will lead you to a dead end, and west doesn't exist. Like, it will I think it gives incorrect information. But if you proceed up here and go along all the way across the top bracket, you want this second light pillar, not the first one, which is in that gap. That, if you look on the west side of the map, this one I bring it up, there's a gap that's like mirrored to where this one is. Can you see what I mean? Like, it's mirrored to there. So go back through north, and then east, and then be wary of the shadow going down. Now here's the trick. One of these doors is right in the path of a shadow, so if you go through the door you're screwed. And the other door will lead you into another shadow. But you need to go this way because this will circle round back to where the main room is, where it will allow you to avoid the shadows. And there's an Ifrit in here, which is another demon that if you can recruit in some form or another, it might be worth it, but the luck be it, I just don't. Like, even if I don't recruit demons, I will still... Oh, sorry, Ifrit, because it spells it that way. Even if I don't get the demons, it doesn't mean you shouldn't. It's just because I get a mixture of not being lucky and not being bothered to an extent. Well, I just keep on forgetting to go down the recruitment and just stick to the party I have. Doesn't mean you should avoid them. So if I specify it, it still might be worth picking it up. And Ifrit is one of the ones that I would recommend picking up because of some of its fire skills. Because there is actually a 4th tier to the skills that I don't pick up in this game at all. But this because they're very unique. Like, there is an electric skill that is tier 4 called Thunder Rain. That I think it's 4 that can learn it, but I never get 4, so I never get it. But that is a 4th tier. It is stronger than Zeodyne. I think it's like Niflheim is something Loki can learn, which is like tier 4 ice. Hellfire tier 4 fire. But it's time for the 3rd boss to go through it. The little shadow pest. My, quite handsome. You managed to navigate your way through my shadows. I'm tired, Amagatsuhi. I quench my thirst with your blood, so come here. Skadi of the lot, as I said before, I personally find to be the least problematic. It doesn't mean you shouldn't treat it as a threat, and it doesn't mean she isn't going to be the hardest to you. It's just you're going to be pushing for magic more often than not through here. Oh, and also making her worthless with Frog Breath. Thunderclaps is a little dangerous though. Despite its naming, it's based around light. So it can hurt you. Which is problematic, because I think I've still got Satan on. I don't think I swapped my Magatama. So I'm weak to light, so it's a higher chance of it connecting to me. And so thankfully I get rather lucky through it. There's another fight later on where, and I will mention it when we get to it, that I straight up forgot. And the entire boss's gimmick is that it spams light-based attacks. And I completely forgot and walked in with Satan again, so I was weak to light. And somehow I won the boss anyway. Despite the fact it's like every other turn it used Mahame on, which is an instant kill light skill, which I'm weak to, so it had a higher chance of connecting, and just somehow it never connected to me. I just got insanely lucky with it. And I'll mention it when we get to it, because I cannot stress enough, do not walk into that fight weak to light. Go into it with immunity to light so you can make the boss lose turns. I just got extremely unlucky with it. I can't recall, but I think this is another boss that is actually like either drastically resistant or immune to physical, making it more of a magic test. But it's not something that I'd say is like a magic. Oh, okay, it is. That just told me. So it is technically a magic check, but not to the same level as the previous ones. As I said before, I count it as 3 main ones. I do not count this boss as one of them, because like I said, I don't find this boss hard. This boss I really don't count as one of those ones. The third actual magic test, ironically, it can actually be hurt by physical attacks at first. It's just it becomes immune to it later. But that magic test is the longest fight in the game, at least in my recording. When we get to it, it's like 25 minutes to that boss fight alone. But because it's a boss, I didn't want to skip any of it. I had to showcase that, no, this is just how the boss works. And it takes a long while. But that's for a long while away yet. That's in the final dungeon of the entire goddamn game. And I mean the actual final dungeon. Because this dungeon, as you might have gathered, is entirely focused around cementing the final pieces of Isamu's reason. As I've said before, the entire path of a reason isn't just about building your own way of making the world. You have to make a ideology of how the new world should be forged so strong that a god of some kind agrees with it and agrees to fuse with the human making it. That is what we're going to see for this third act, because we are well and truly into the third act. As I said, one moment you start approaching Amala Temple, I count it as Act 3. Because we are going to see throughout this the final development of Isamu's reason. And so we're going to see a god reach out to him to act as the final precipice of his ideology, his idea of everyone should have their own personal paradise. A god is going to agree with that and develop with him. After that, we are going to do the same thing for the other 2 developing reasons. So we are going to check in on Chiaki and see her finish her reason. Because although she fused her body, blood and soul with Gozu Tenno, that was a demon, not a god. So she has yet to get the agreement of a god. Which makes Chiaki actually kind of the most interesting when you know she's getting a reason, because it means her entire body is a 3-way fusion. And what I mean is that Gozu Tenno is a demon that she fused with. So she's part human and part demon already, which you'd think would kind of deactivate her ability to have a reason, since we're part human and part demon, and that's why we can't have a reason. But I guess it's because her reason already had footing and grounding before she did the fusion that it was allowed, I guess. But she will then also fuse with her god, whichever one she finds, to make it a 3-way. She'll be part human, part demon, and part god. Which then just leaves Ikawa, the last one, who's off to the diet building to manifest at the end of his reason. And so he will get his god too. And so the entirety of this last part, which is why I said this is the final 3, and then it's the final dungeon, which I know is kind of like a double up on the same term, but it's why I count it, is because this dungeon and the next 2 are entirely all dedicated to the same thing, seeing the final outcome of everyone's reasons. And depending on what reason ending you're going for, agreeing and siding with one of them, or, for me, going with true demon ending, siding with none of them. And then after that, you've witnessed everyone's reason be fully realized, so the true final dungeon will open up and we will do it to approach the Kagutsuhi, to see whose reason is the strongest and develop the new world depending on who wins. Because only one can develop the new world from what is made. But Skady here is nigh on dead now, so we're just wrapping up this fight. Oh, speaking of, yeah, literally I called that. What a shame. And that marks the third and final temple done. So all that's left is to leave here and go talk to Isamu in the main temple, because we will now be allowed access.
Wow, you actually pulled it off. Too bad you get nothing out of it. Or maybe you're just happy being a tool. I don't know. Either way, I did say I'd let you inside the Central Temple. Why don't you go head outside? You know, I honestly feel pretty bad for you. So I might as well show you the truth. The truth of this world, and the truth of Misubi. Now, come in.
If you've been consistently agreeing with Isamu up until this point, needless to say, when you come to the Amala Temple, you're more coming here to help him. It's less about you seeing and he's saying, why don't you just do the 3 temples and I can show you something. It's more, hey, can you be a bro and do the 3 temples so we can show you something? And it will also put a choice in front of you when you go in here that wouldn't be here before. To jump the gun, if you're siding with Isamu up until this point, it will put an option to straight up kill a character in front of you for it. If you haven't been siding with him, then there's no choice in the matter. So, when you're ready, enter the main temple and witness the scene.
Quit complaining. You won't have to hang in there much longer. You can get all the rest you want when this is done.
Your plan is to take me out by caressing me with Magatsuhi? I say we just get this over with. Never liked this place much anyway.
Well, what can I say? People like you were made to be stepping stones. And yeah, it's a cruel job, but somebody's gotta do it. Thanks for going to all that trouble. The Magatsuhi those powerful demons were hoarding is now mine. It's enough to bring Musubi into being. Are you oblivious or just plain dumb? I didn't know you were such a saint. Listen, this guy is not at all who you think he is. This whole sacrifice idea wasn't even mine. It was his. See, he was planning to use this Magatsuhi all along. And it would have been you or me hanging up there.
Yeah? I came up with the plan. That doesn't mean I would have carried it out.
Oh, I'm sure you would have. One life doesn't amount to much. Didn't you say something along those lines?
It doesn't matter what I say now, does it? It'll just sound like an excuse to you. Most things that are worthwhile require some sort of sacrifice. I've made many sacrifices in my lifetime. So go ahead, do whatever it is you're gonna do. Just remember, you'll pay a high price for following that path.
Don't worry. Like you said, it's my decision. I'm the one in charge here. Pay close attention. This is what happens when you cross the true master of Amala. Okay? Time to rest in peace. Any last words before I dunk your ass?
Do your worst, kid.
Perfect. With this much Magatsuhi, there shouldn't be any problem. My god will soon emerge from the infinite space beyond the Amala network. He is outside the flow of time, a being without a name, the god of absolute solitude. I guess it might be inconvenient for him to remain nameless, huh? Let's see, a drifting god. How about Noah? Come forth, Noah. my god. Awesome, right? The world in Musubi will soon arrive. No longer will people interfere with each other's lives. Everyone can finally be content.
As you go to leave, you'll be made aware of the Angels of Chiaki. They are now aware that someone has conceived a reason. And they will talk about that Chiaki's doing one as well, hinting you on of where you need to go next, which is back to Asakusa, because we need to go save Futomimi, because she's gone immediately to go murder the mannequins, because she sees them as weak. So following her ideology, it makes sense. She's slaying the weak that she sees as worthless. So in the brief second, there's two things worth talking about. Firstly, Hijiri's not dead from that. Hijiri actually becomes an interesting character because he ends up in other games. He ends up in like a subspace falling into that, and he ends up finding himself in other locations across the Atlas Megaverse. So Hijiri is more of a constant. He doesn't die from that, like I said, he ends up elsewhere. And secondly is that the Isamu has fully developed his reason, so that's the end we'll see of his story arc until we encounter him to either side with him or fight against him at the end of the game. He is formed with Noah. But we'll learn more about the other reasons next time. So until then, you guys take care now. Peace.